Stingray Robb.
Yep.
He's probably not coming on either.
No, he's probably not coming on. So I did say that, didn't I? Well, goodbye, Soheb. And hello, Stingray. Hello and welcome to Talk Shift. Now, I think it was the 18th of January 2023, I was sat in a motorway service station halfway between London and Manchester, having a McDonald's, because of course I was, and a bit of news flashes up on my screen, and that is that Dalecoin Racing have just announced Stingray Robb as their new driver for the 2023 IndyCar season. And I remember looking at that thinking, what a name. I don't remember looking at that and thinking, in 2.5 years' time, I'd be sat on the other end of a video call with him, feeling very, very scared, given everything I've said over the last 2.5 years. Stingray, how are you?
I'm doing well, Will. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good. Really good. Again, pleasure to have you on. And I'm really looking forward to kind of just jumping into your career a little bit and getting to know the Stingray Robb behind the helmet, I guess. So I guess if we dive straight in, thinking about 2025 on a whole, new team, sort of. Obviously, you've been with Juncos before in the road up into Indy, but how have you found it?
This year's been interesting. I think IndyCar is kind of at an interesting spot where the car's been around long enough that there's not a lot of newness year to year. You see another series where there's advancements made. Obviously, we had the hybrid introduced middle of last year, but the overall car design has been very similar since pretty much back to 2012. So the teams that have done well in the early days have been doing well now. And, being a young team in Juncos Hollinger Racing, I think that there's been an uphill battle to be gained. But for myself, I think we've seen some highlights, Long Beach being one of them. I remember watching your video after that, and thank you for the cheers. But also just a lot of learning. And I think that there's been obviously some letdowns. The Indy 500 was one of those events where I felt like we had a decent car to race with. We had found an issue early on in the week going into the race there where I was like, oh, okay, there's something wrong with the car. Once we fix that, we'll be able to race well. And so we did. And then obviously having Larson spin right in front of us in the middle of the race was not ideal for our running. But I think that going forward, I think that the last 3 races of the year I'm excited about. I know that our short oval package has been very good with Connor running well there. And then obviously myself, I'm hoping that I can do some learning from him. He's a bit of an oval specialist, and it seems like he's got something figured out there.
Awesome. And it feels like, at least from the social that you guys, or the socials that you guys put out, that you two have a really good relationship as well. And the vibe in that team is looking really strong at the moment. Would you say that's true?
I think so. And I think we're both honestly a little bit surprised. I think Connor more than myself, but I remember preseason before we had signed to the team, there was some things said I didn't know about at the time. But I guess that we were in tension with one another. We had some dirt to deal with there. And once I found out about that, I'm like, Connor, what's the deal? And he's like, I don't know. I think that we're actually all right. So we get along well in the engineering room and hanging out and everything. So he's been a great teammate for me. Connor's a fun guy to be around, and he's a pretty good racer too.
I think if we look at your entire kind of IndyCar career on a whole, I think obviously Long Beach is up there for highlights. I guess other high points, you've got the literal one in Iowa. Yeah, that was scary. I think that was the one race that season that I missed, and I woke up in the morning and my Twitter had just exploded of, is FP1WILL okay? I'm thinking, no, is Stingray okay? Bloomin' heck, that was mental. I think you've spoken about it in depth, but what was it like from being in the car, and or how much do you remember even?
Unfortunately, I remember all of it. I remember the laps leading up to. I remember the moment I made contact, and I remember flying through the air. And I say unfortunate because that's not a memory that's too positive.
Yeah.
But I do remember more vividly the moment where I kind of hit the pause button. Everything kind of went slow motion as I was going through the air and looking out the windscreen and being like, oh, that's the top of the catch fence. I shouldn't be up here. And I remember the world kind of rotating and being upside down. I didn't realize that I was upside down multiple times. I thought that it was just kind of big impact. Because I had my eyes closed at that point. I didn't realize that I was actually spinning across the ground, barrel rolling. But post-accident, I think this is kind of funny because I was actually pretty okay. I mean, I was sitting there upside down. I remember my spotter was on the radio and he was telling me, okay, they're coming to you. All right, they're there. and I kind of look down, right, because I'm sitting upside down, and I see the AMR safety team kind of like giving me a thumbs up, but it was actually reverse, but I was like, yeah, I'm good. Get me out of here. Like, I was starting to freak out. It's hot, sweaty. It was the end of a race. I mean, it was the last lap of a doubleheader weekend. And so I was exhausted at that point, overheating, and just, I wanted to get out of the car as soon as I could. So they flipped the car back over. They get me kind of unbuckled. I take my helmet off. I just like stripped all of the gear off I could, my gloves, my Hans, everything. And I remember feeling like a little bit of lightheadedness and just like, okay, I think that this is the moment where the shock's actually hitting me and I'm realizing what just happened. And also turning left for that many laps gets you pretty dizzy. And I remember they pulled me up out of the car and I reached up and I grabbed the halo. Well, titanium normally is not very hot, but when you scrape it across the ground for a few hundred yards, it gets pretty warmed up, and I burnt my finger. And that was my one injury from the whole thing, was that I had a blister on my finger, but that was like the needle that broke the camel's back, because I just like passed out. And I remember kind of like everything going white, and I'm being held up by the safety team and thinking to myself, okay, I'm passed out now. What do I do? All right, as soon as I can, when I come to, I'm going to tell them I'm not doing very well. And so like I finally kind of got my wits about me, and I told them like, hey, I'm not doing very well. And they're like, yeah, we know. Like, just lay down. We'll get the stretcher. We'll take care of you. And I was totally fine after that. So very thankful the cars were safe. That was definitely an experience that was hopefully once in a lifetime. Never want to do that again. And hopefully I don't get to see anyone else do that.
The big thing about it for me was it just shows how much further these cars have come in terms of safety as well. And well, all prayers for it as well. Looking back, I guess, at the Indy 500, I know you said obviously this year it didn't end the way you wanted it to, but year before you were leading the Indy 500 at one stage. What's that feeling like, sort of in comparison?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's like what every race car kid dreams about. The Indy 500 in itself, I mean, it's its own beast. We race Indy cars for multiple weekends a year, but that is our main event. That's our Super Bowl. That's our World Cup. That's what we kind of live for in a sense. And the lead up to it is what I think makes it so special, because I moved from Idaho to Indianapolis back in 2022. And I remember my first month of May living in Indianapolis and watching the city just transform, because the whole community just rallies behind this race. And when you show up on race week, everyone's got checkered flags out on their front porch. They got their families that have come from long distances that are repping their favorite team, the favorite jersey. And then you show up on race day and there's 300,000 people live in attendance. You're like, oh, wow, this is the big deal. This is the big show. And leading laps there was one of the coolest things ever, because you have these days leading up to it where it's just like knock down, drag out. You're exhausted. The team's exhausted. It's a lot of hard work. And then you get to all see it come to fruition when that green flag drops. And starting where we were starting, our expectation was, we can go forward. But we weren't thinking that we were going to be leading laps at the beginning stages of the race. And then once we were leading, we were able to continue leading, even though it was an off strategy. We were able to stay up front up until the last two stints where we had an issue there. But it was unbelievable. And it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, once I have a taste of it, I don't ever want to let that go. And I know what to chase now. That's what I'm chasing for the rest of my racing career.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Like, so was Indy, I guess, always the aim, or were there ever kind of, obviously you got a lot of the drivers that initially want to go to Formula One, but was it always kind of America the dream for you when you were starting out in karting?
Yeah, I think that F1 was the aim initially, because growing up, I remember when I was in the early stages of karting, the Senna documentary came out.
Yeah.
And that moved me. That is a great film. I loved Ayrton Senna from that point on. He was kind of, I won't say my idol, but kind of an inspiration of sorts, of like, okay, if I could choose to be like any race car driver, that's the intensity I want to have. That's the charisma I want to have. And like just his, I don't know, like pureness of sport that was inside of him, I think was unbelievable. But IndyCar kind of came about because of my karting career a little bit. I won quite a few championships in karting, and I had the chance to go drive for the CRG factory team based out of Italy for a summer. And I remember going over there and just like doing the whole European experience and being like, man, I just want to go home. And so coming back to America, I loved the sort of diversity of racing that we had in IndyCar with the ovals, the street circuits, and the road courses. And I love the competitiveness. I think that this is one of the series that you can look at and say, okay, on any given weekend, there's probably 10 guys that could win the race. And that's exciting for me. That's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. And it's also just like a little bit more hopeful than I feel like some other series like F1 would be, where if you're not the best car or the best two cars, if you will, then it makes it a lot more difficult to go racing.
Nice. I guess the final question for me before we get into some from the fans that I'm not gonna lie, a little bit scared of getting into, considering what they've put together, but is, I guess, sort of looking to the future now, and where do you sort of see this going next year? Is there any plans put in place that you can talk about anyway, or?
Nothing to fully reveal yet. I will say that I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
Nice.
Being with JHR, I have a lot of fond memories here. Winning a championship together is a big one of those. And they have some good people in place. There's a young group of engineers there now. My engineer, Townsend, he's a rookie engineer. So I think for him, it's been kind of interesting to have us kind of be both young, aspiring people in motorsports trying to learn together. And now that we have that sort of character development done, as well as just like how to learn how to communicate with each other, that's a big part of what we do, right? We have to learn what my needs are and how I communicate those to him, and then how does he receive those and apply those to the vehicle. And so I think that my goal is just to build off that in the future. And, I haven't had a year since I won my championship where I've been with the same team for more than a season. So I think that for me, I just need a little bit more stability in that sense to try and develop from the previous season into the next season. And hopefully that will open some doors and we'll see some more highlights.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point I was about to make. I guess that continuity, if you were to carry on with JHR, must be so key. I mean, we've seen it already with your Long Beach performance from your previous time working with that team. You seemed a lot more settled, at least from the outside looking in, I think. And yeah, I guess heading into 2026, well, best of luck, I guess is what I can say. And I'm hoping I'll be able to make comedy reviews on and use the Stingray theme for well into the future. But we now get to the bit, as I said, that I'm scared of, because I made the mistake of asking my fan base to put forward some questions, and I've realized my fan base were the worst fan base to ask questions for, because we started off with, there were lots of Steve Irwin references. What did Steve Irwin ever do to you? There was, how much money would it take for you to take Pillow out of the remaining races and make it a bit more interesting? What tidal areas you prefer for finding and consuming invertebrates? There was a wide array of questions. We then did get into some normal ones, and we'll start with probably the one that I'm afraid you've probably had to answer many a time. But it was, where did your parents get the greatest name of all time from, and should they get a Nobel Peace Prize for it?
Well, I like your fan base, if I'm honest, because they're very creative in their questions. I like reading through the comments every once in a while, and there's definitely some passionate people in there. I love it. But that's usually the first question that gets asked is, where did the name come from? The short story and the more telling side of the story is that my parents were big Corvette fans. So they decided to name me after the Stingray Corvette. My dad's got a 1966 Stingray that I grew up around. I remember going to the drag races with him and just like watching him rip down the drag strip. And then obviously going to Corvette Club meetings, autocross events. I grew up around kind of that Corvette theme group, if you will. And that's where I got my inspiration from at an early age. I wanted to go fast because I saw cars that were ripping down the drag strip all the time at high speeds. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love the feeling of like when you started the engine up and it would shake your lungs inside your chest. Like, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, like the best sound. But the longer side of the story is that my dad's side of the family's heritage is from Stirling, Scotland. So Sting is actually short for Sterling, and both my grandfathers had Ray in their name. I think that it was just an excuse to get the name Stingray, but honestly, it worked out well, and here I am today. And I think that it's rather fitting for what I do. And to be honest, it would not make for a very good accountant or anything else other than a race car driver.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and congratulations as well, by the way, but did you not get married in the Stingray as well?
We had our getaway vehicle as a Stingray. Yes. Brilliant. It was awesome.
That's incredible. I mean, if I could get married at an FP1 event, that'd be brilliant. I mean, well, I need to get a girlfriend first as well. I've got a few steps to get there before that. But the next question sort of came in from Inferno Storm 7446. That's, have you ever met another Stingray? I think I know the answer to that already, but
You'd be surprised, actually.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I do know of someone's child that was recently born named Stingray. So I'm praying that that's the only one I ever hear of for the sake of any children out there. But I have not personally met anyone named Stingray yet.
That leads quite nicely into the next one because we are the Senate 1239. They love numbers in these usernames. Have said, how do the other kids at school react to the name Stingray?
Yeah, it's actually, I was pretty lucky. I was in a small school, so everyone knew who I was pretty early on in my public school career. But I think the best reaction I ever had was from my Spanish teacher. I was on the road traveling for karting for the first 2 weeks of school. And so when I showed up at his class for the first time, he didn't read my name off the roll. And I was like, hey, by the way, I'm here. And he had thought it had just been a prank for like the last 2 weeks from his other like co-teachers. And so I'm like, no, like I'm real. My actual name is Stingray. And he's like, no, like go to the principal's office. I'm like, I promise, like it's me. I'm the one. And so that was probably the best reaction I had.
Oh, that's amazing. This is the last name question, I promise. It's from Useless Moose, and it said, if you'd instead been named after a Pontiac, what would you ever want it to be? I mean, you've got a few options here. The Firebird's up there, Bonneville, Sunbird, we can't use Aztec anymore. That might get you in trouble. But what would you go with?
Oh man, I don't even know. I think I grew up, was it the Pontiac Solstice? That was the one I remember. So that would be the most similar to what I got now. Solstice Ray, something like that. I don't know.
That's
Firebird,
good.
I mean, that's a little too on the nose for me. That's bold, I know, coming from a Stingray. But
I was gonna say, like Stingray, that's all right, but Firebird, not too far. Okay. Okay, right. Next one. I'm really glad this question was asked because it doesn't make me sound incredibly vain. But this is from Germat7046. He said, when and how did you first find out about FP1WILL?
oh man, I'm trying to think. It was definitely during 2023, the Dale Coyne season. And I think that I'm trying to think. It was definitely a few races in, and I think I had someone send it to me, and they're like, "Stingray, you're famous," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" I remember watching the video and reading the comments, like, "Oh no, like this is going to be a disaster." And actually, I've seen you've been won over to the dark side here. Every once in a while, we can get some cheers, which is good. But it's actually kind of fun because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to share this or not. But when I go to races and I meet fans that I haven't met before, and they see me for the first time, I can tell who's seen the videos and who hasn't by the way they say my name. Because like normal people say, it's Stingray Robb. People that have seen the comedy reviews, they go, it's Stingray. And I'm like, no way. Like every time they say it, it's like ingrained into their brain and they can't get it out. So
I'm so
awesome.
sorry.
No, it's great. It is actually great. I love it.
Oh, fair play. Fair play. I think I remember, again, this is going to sound really sad and fanboyish of me, but I remember when you followed me because it was just before the Guinness Acre. And I think I lost my mind because I was mid-script as well. And it was all kind of thought, okay, we've got a new intro now. There we go. That's sorted. But yeah, the next one kind of links in. It's from Sander Huier. I can't pronounce that. What do you think of the fact that you're a bit of a meme in IndyCar? Not meant in the bad way, of course.
I mean, I don't mind it, actually. I think that the internet's a fun place. And people do a good job of making motorsports a very meme-worthy thing at times. But, you know, I think at this point, people, they can appreciate who I am and what I'm doing. And I would love to be a meme at the front of the pack sometimes. I know that that's not always the case, but that's the goal. And I think that I'm going to keep striving for that and then keep laughing at all the memes that people can come up with.
Brilliant. I love that approach. I think that's great. Speaking of the memes and some that you've created, and this was asked by a couple of people, but I've taken Alex McNaughty's question. Can you explain the dancing girls at Long Beach? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea. I do know. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember they came to me and they said, Stingray, we need you for a video. And it was 30 seconds of me walking out of the trailer. They said, stand there. I said, okay. I stood there. I looked at the camera. They danced and they said, all right, you're good. And I walked away. And then the next day I saw it and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's gone completely viral. Like I didn't do a single thing, but this might be one of the best videos we've ever made. So I actually liked it a lot. Those girls were fun.
Where does that rank with that one and the worm video? Because that's the other one that really went and took off.
If I could wipe the internet of the worm video, I would. I mean, that has been just the nail in the coffin of my life at different times. But that is my signature dance move. So if everyone needs a wedding dance partner to do the worm with, I'm your guy.
Brilliant. Right, next one's come from Patrick. He said, when you win the Indy 500, what type of milk are you going for? Have you thought about that yet?
Yeah. Whole milk. Give me all of it. I want to taste that sweet glass of victory. It's actually funny. I don't know if you can see this cup I have here, but it says winners drink milk on it.
Nice.
So I'm even practicing right now. I'm getting ready for this thing. I want to be well prepared.
What are the celebrations like? I mean, I guess if we go back to Long Beach, what were those celebrations like after that result? Because from the scenes we saw from the garages and from the paddock afterwards, it looked like everyone was having a whale of a time.
That was great. Yeah, I think that anytime, I mean, we all know this. Motorsports is very tough.
Mm-hmm.
And unless your name's Acapulco, you lose way more than you win. And I think that you got to celebrate those victories and be in the moment. But the next race, it comes very quickly. And so you celebrate that day, get that out of your system, and then you go and focus on the next race and hopefully get back to work, learn what you can, and move on. But that was something that I was so happy to share, because that was a moment where I think that I realized, I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm back at home with this team. I got to give Ricardo Juncos a hug right after that ninth place finish. And it was like, oh, this is what it felt like when we won the championship together back in 2020. It's like, okay, I have those feelings back in the last 2 years prior, just haven't felt that way. So it was a little bit of an inspiration moment for me to kind of enjoy the sport at another level again and not just check a box. I think that it's really tough when you're so competitive like I am, and you're not getting the results and not meeting the expectations that you want to, that those hard days, they wear you down. And that was one of those days where I felt juiced back up again. It felt really good.
Nice. I can only imagine it, really. A couple more questions. So this comes from Aiden. What is the hardest part about driving an IndyCar? And he said, what's the biggest difference between the two? I don't know what the other one he was referring to, but we'll stick to the first part of that question. What's the trickiest bit, would you reckon?
Oh man, IndyCar is actually quite physical, and I think that that's an underrated part of the sport. The lack of power steering and just the heat in general is quite difficult. We were racing at Mid-Ohio earlier this year, and the cockpit temperature was around 116 degrees Fahrenheit. So I don't know what the correlation is to the Celsius there, but quite warm. And then you're in the car for 2+ hours with no power steering. So I got blisters all over my hands. My neck was exhausted, but it's just physically exhausting over the course of a race, because the car itself, like it doesn't produce a huge amount of downforce like you would see an F1 car produce, but the weight of the wheel is so heavy, and especially with the hybrid unit, the extra weight that's in the car now, it just demands more physicality than it has before. And I think that you see drivers during the offseason, a great example is Marcus Ericsson. He bulked up quite a bit to try and get ready for this season, and just the pure strength that you need.
I guess you got no power steering, do you, in the Indy cars?
Yeah, no power steering.
Yeah, so with the hybrid, then it's even harder. Crikey, yeah. Final question has come from Curly Robin 342, and that's again more of a jokey one. But have you ever considered becoming a pilot after your takeoff at Iowa 2024?
No, I think I've got enough flying experience at this point. I don't need any more.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Stingray, thank you so much for coming on. It's been, as I said at the beginning, a surreal experience for me. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And thanks for being such a good sport as well over the course of the years. And I'd like to formally apologize for anything that I have ever said over the last 3 years.
No worries.
It is all said in love, and I am still very, very scared of you. But
well, the next time I'm in London, you don't have to go run and hide. Maybe we could do a little bit of a meet and greet. That'd be fun to meet up in person. I promise I won't kill you off. No stabbing or anything. But no, I do appreciate what you do for us in the sport. You bring a lot of jokes and memes, but at the same time, I think it's fun to have a bright spotlight on a series that's as good as this.
So there's enough stabbings in London anyway, so we don't need to add another one to that count. But no, I appreciate the kind words, man. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That might just have been the best day of my life, the best half hour of my life. Wow. massive thank you to Stingray for coming on. The big thank you, though, goes to you guys, because without you, there's no way any of this could have happened. This has been months in the making now, and it's been difficult keeping it a secret. I'm not going to lie, but as you can probably tell by the smile on my face, this was just unbelievable, and that's down to you guys. So thank you so much for that. I can't really say much more. So other than the fact, of course, if you're new here, if you've come from the FP1WILL channel and all of my previous plugs have not dragged you to Talk Shift, then welcome to Talk Shift. There's more like this every single week, every single Saturday. So get subscribed. We're trying to get the channel to 8,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We've gained about 3 in the last 2 weeks, so we're going to struggle to hit that. So it's going to be a group effort if that's going to happen. But hit that subscribe button, drop it a like if you enjoyed as well. And there are a few extra bits to our conversation over on the Patreon that you can check out, and a sneak peek to what's coming in the comedy review as well over there, just for £1 a month for the Talk Shift pension fund that helps keep this podcast going, essentially. So big thank you to all of them for their support. We will be back next week. So Heb will be back. I'll rehire him. Don't panic for those that are missing him this week. But until then, have a good one, everybody.